Nothing? Okay. Now I lost my, oh, how about now? Yep, yep. It's saying that it's live. I don't know if people can hear me or see me. It looks like I have somebody that says, yep, you're live. If you would maybe post in the comments section to see if I'm live, I would greatly appreciate it. Oh, I got a thumbs up here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get started then. I'm going to look at the rest of our team here. Okay, all right, so here we go. Well, welcome to the Wednesday, September 9th edition of Storm Forecast. My name is Brad Bergstrom. I'm lucky enough to be the superintendent here in Sauk Rapids Rice Public Schools. I want to thank you for taking time tonight to join me for this Facebook Live presentation. Just for those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. For those of you who've been here for a while, thank you for coming back. Just want to go through some of the ground rules, expectations, kind of what this is about tonight. First of all, the purpose for this is for me to be able to share some information with you in regards to common questions that I get asked, but it's also an opportunity for you to ask me any questions that you might have. Please use the comment section with Facebook Live here, and we've got people that are looking at those, and we'll pull those questions and get them to me to try and answer as we go through the evening here. Just a reminder, I might not be able to answer everybody's questions. We try to be here for about an hour, and those questions that we don't get asked, we'll certainly take them and put them into our frequently asked questions document that we have on our website as well. So, excuse me, so please know that your questions are important, and we'll try to get through as many of them as we possibly can. A couple other housekeeping items for you or one last thing is, remember that I'm trying to answer everybody's questions as best I can, and sometimes some of the responses maybe not be, might be an answer that you necessarily might not care for, but just remember to treat each other here in this and social media, treat each other with kindness. I would greatly appreciate that. So with that, I want to get to some questions that I've been getting. One of them coming today, and a couple that have shown up across my desk in the last since we last met. And the first one is so if my child winds up with COVID-19 or has to quarantine for a period of time, who do I contact in regards to my child's academics? And the answer to that question is it'll depend upon which grade level you're at, but here's how the process works. So what winds up happening is when you call in your child's absence in terms of either they have to quarantine or they have an active COVID case, you'll work with the health office official to kind of figure out, okay, how many days that we're going to be out, what's this going to look like. Our health office officials will then get that information at the elementary level to the teacher. So the teacher is made aware, and then the teacher will reach out to you and try to let you know what that homework situation is going to be looking like while your child is out. At the middle school and at the high school level, it's going to go to the high school administration and or to the administration either at the high school or at the middle school, and it'll then be dispersed out to counselors, and they will go ahead and reach out and get things set up from there so that parents know what the work situation is going to be like for their child if they have to be out for an extended absence because of COVID-19. So just wanted to make you be aware of that. The second question is one that happened today. And the question is, why were the buses 40 minutes late today? And so part of what we have in our system is a transfer bus. And transfer bus moves students around. And that bus, we have to make sure that everything is set and ready to go before we send that in motion. And unfortunately, we had some untimely delays for a number of different reasons. So buses wound up being a little late today. We apologize for that. It's not uncommon to see things not work perfectly seamless in the first week of school. We're trying our level best to make sure that we are doing that. But again, we've addressed the issues, and hopefully tomorrow we'll look for a much better result because we'll be having more students showing up tomorrow than what we had today. And then finally, a common question that I get asked is there a magic number in terms of if Sauk Rapids Rice Public Schools will be moving to a different learning model? And the answer to that question is no, there's not a magic number. There are some people that believe that when the Governor's Safe Learning Plan came out, there was a chart that was found in there that talked about if you have so many cases per your county's population, that if the number is between 0 and 9, everybody can be in session, secondary and elementary. 10 to 19 means that we're going to wind up being in person at the elementary level and hybrid at the secondary level, so on and so forth. And that chart was pretty widely publicized. That chart was designed to help schools in making the decision about their base learning model. Once that decision was made, then it becomes a data point for schools to use. And it is one of the data points we use, but it is not purely based upon that number. So there's not a magic number, but rather you're looking again for trends. You're looking for, are we going up in terms of COVID cases? Are we going down? Are they found in specific locations that are not impacting schools? I think in the past I've talked about with the prison and the fact that if there's COVID cases that are happening there, and unfortunately it's with the inmates and they're not able to leave, that has less of an impact on the community than if it is with the people who work there and they're leaving from the building. So at the end of the day, it's not a magic number, but rather looking at trending data. Are we going up? Are we going down? Where is it happening at? And fortunately or unfortunately, as the largest employer in the county, we're going to probably know firsthand where our COVID numbers are at in terms of how it's impacting our staff and our students, and whether we can go with a less restrictive model, or do we need to go to a more restrictive model? So those are some of three of the common questions that I've been asked since we last met. And with that, I'm going to take a look and see what questions we have. The question is, can my students change color groups in their schedules? And so the question, that is a great question. And I think the best thing to happen with that is for you to reach out to your child's school and see what that looks like. Again, I've talked about in the past how I want to make sure that I'm not over committing or saying something that is not accurate. And a lot of the questions sometimes are more specific to the building level. And if I can answer the question, I certainly will. This is one I'm not sure. So I think it would be best if you reached out to your child's school to try and see what the school has to say in regards to switching those groups. The next question is, I don't see a lunch schedule on the website. Where can I find this? That's a great question. And I know when information was sent out to families in regards to what it's going to look like for those who are in-person learning. We laid out a schedule in terms of what that's going to look like, and that information was specifically sent out. But I will certainly talk with our team and see if this is something that maybe we don't want to do to put on the website. One of the things that I do worry about is that if we have to change models, or because each building's schedule looks a little different, want to make sure that we have accuracy with that. But I'll certainly talk with our team about doing, seeing if we want to put something on the website with that, because at the end of the day, I do know that information was included in all the information that went out to families in regards to what the school year is going to look like, but it's certainly something that we can put onto the website, and I'll talk with our team about doing that. Oh, I had a hard time picking that one off the piece of paper. This next question is, if families already choose to do full in, and I'm going to assume that full in means that they are having their children come into school, which is the model that we're in right now, full in person, are they able to switch to distance learning if it's needed? And the answer to that question is yes. If there is a desire or a need for a family to move from the model that we're currently in, and whether that be if we're in person or if we have to go more restrictive at some point and go to a hybrid, if you want to move to the distance learning model, that certainly is an option that is available for families to do that. Depending upon where things were at, it might look a little different for a period of time, but there will be that distance learning model that will be available. So, and that's part of the governor's requirement when he put together his safe learning plan, is that families would have the option to do that. On the flip side of that question is can families move from distance learning to a less restrictive model, whether that be in person or if it's in a hybrid model? And the answer is yes, that can happen as well, with this caveat. And the caveat really is that we're going to look for a natural break, such as the end of a trimester, to do that. Scheduling and making sure that we've got adequate staffing for our distance learning students is really important, and we just want to make sure that we have the right people, we have the right teachers in place in order to make sure that everybody's needs are going to be met. And so we're asking for a commitment at the distance learning model until there's a natural break, such as if we are at the end of a trimester. I am really struggling tonight trying to pick up these pieces of paper. The next question is meals for distance learning families. Where can they be picked up? It was my understanding that, that this information went out to families, for our distance learning families, in terms of where they're going to be picked up. I'm going to send a text message here, so please forgive me for utilizing another piece of social media. I'll see if I can get a response to that question here before we're done, but I'll reach out to our Director of Food Service. I know that there's going to be a pickup location that is going to be found here in Sauk Rapids, and there will also be a pickup location that will be in Rice as well. And so just give me a moment here and I will send this message out to see if I can get an answer. So where will... Thank you very much for giving me the time to do this. So speaking of meals, the next, I want to add a piece to this question, and that is, I read, people have read where the USDA has brought forward some information where we may have the opportunities for a meal waiver, which might provide opportunities for our families to get meals at a reduced cost or free, like we did last spring, as well as what happens during the summer meals program. The really unfortunate piece with this is that we're kind of given two additional pieces of information. And one was they're not sure how long this program is going to last because of financial considerations. And number two, it was really unexpected and there has been no guidance with that. So until we get guidance from either the USDA and or the Department of Education, we're going to continue with our meals as what we have normally done pre-COVID-19. But as soon as we get that information, as soon as we get clarification in terms of what this is going to look like and what costs may or may not be charged for those meals, we will be sure and let you know. We're just waiting on that guidance and from either MDE or from the Department of Agriculture. This is a transportation question, and I was just informed we got some new stickies for that, easier to pick up a little bit for me. So anyways, will we be sent more info on buses and being able to use the tracking app? The answer to that question is yes. Last week I talked a little bit about because we have a new transportation company and they have their own company that they use for the GPS piece in order to communicate with the software that we use as a district to plan routes, do those things. There was some contract language that needed to be worked out, and we were cautiously optimistic that everything was going to get done and put into place by the time the first day of school. At this point, that has not happened yet, but as soon as we get it, we'll be sure and let families know, because we know for a fact that families really rely on that. And I just got an update here in regards to the previous question in regards to meals. So for distance learning families, meals will be picked up on Wednesday at the middle school and also at Rice. And again, an email was sent out to families that were marked as distance learning families, followed by a sign up. And if you didn't get that information and your family is in distance learning, please reach out to food service 258-1520. Again, that number is 258-1520, and we'll make sure that we get you on the list so that you get that information. So again, just as a little follow-up, meal pickup will be on Wednesdays, and it will be at the middle school. And I think the food service director, now that I'm looking at this, did tell me this. I just didn't remember this. Will be at the middle school and will be at Rice School on Wednesdays. And again, email communication went out. If you didn't get anything and your family is distance learning, please reach out to food service 258-1520, and we'll make sure that you get included on future communication. This next question is there discussion about moving to hybrid for elementary in the next couple of weeks? This was what was heard. I'll go back and talk a little bit about the question that I've been getting is there a magic number? And the answer to the question, again, is there's no magic number. And so our process really is we meet once a week as what we call our COVID incident management team, which includes members of our administrative team. It includes public health, and it was confirmed that we're going to be able to get somebody from Centric Care as well. And part of what this team will be doing is reviewing multiple data points in terms of where are we at with COVID-19 in our community. And the key thing to remember is it's not just a number of cases that we have, but where are those cases at? How is this impacting what we're able to do within the school system? So we'll look at those multiple points, and then from there, recommendation will be made in terms of, do we stay the same? Where we're at? Do we want to start thinking about maybe moving? Do we want to a more restrictive or a less restrictive model, depending upon where we're at? And at this point, I can tell you that there has been no conversation about moving to a hybrid. We did have our one meeting last week at the elementary school. In the next couple of weeks, we did have a meeting last week. And again, constantly looking at the numbers, seeing where they're at and checking things out. And we will communicate any changes that go out there will come from the school, and we'll do that in as timely a manner as we possibly can. We meet on Thursdays at 1 o'clock to review our data. And then if there's going to be a change, of course, we'd like to do that, let people know as soon as possible. The only reason why I would think that we wouldn't be giving families enough time to make changes and adjustments and the key question is if there's going to be a move, is if there's a sudden spike and it's determined that we have to move very quickly with this. There's been no indication of that. And really just be watching for us from the school district to be sharing information in terms of where things are at, and be looking for us to share whether or not we're going to be moving in a different direction. You will hear that from us very clearly. And again, there's no big secret to this, but we do need to make sure we're looking at the numbers and knowing where they're at and following the process that we had established to put this decision making process into place. And again, this is always done in consultation with the school board as well. The next question is, if a child or family needs to quarantine due to symptoms, will they be switched to distance learning for that 14-period day? And the answer to that question is no, that would not be the intention to do that. We want to keep kids consistent in terms of where they're at. And we do know that if a person has to quarantine for 14 days, that does include the weekends as well. So depending upon when it happens, once they're done with that quarantine, they are we're more than willing to welcome them back. If we wind up in a situation where a student's going to be out for an extended period of time, there may be some consultation with the family. So let's say that a student has to quarantine for 14 days, and on day 13, they wind up getting some symptoms, which we know this virus can sit and be asymptomatic for extended periods of time, and then they find out they start getting some of those symptoms, and now they have to stay at home because they went and got tested and they've got a positive test result. Then I think we might want to have that conversation with the family, but I don't think it's an automatic, and I don't think it's a given that that's going to be happening. But instead, we'll look to provide the children with the homework and the pieces that are necessary. And that can be done in a variety of different ways, and keep the child in the model that they're currently in, unless the family wants to do something different. This next question is, if I choose to go to distance learning at the end of the trimester, who do I contact? Great question. And I think the best place to start with that is for the parent or guardian to reach out to your child's building administrator and let them know what you're thinking about doing in terms of making that change. And again, the more time we have for that decision to be told to us, the more time we have to plan purposefully. One of the things that I want to be very clear with is that it's really difficult on Friday afternoon to get a message saying, well, I'd like my child to move out of in-person learning, because that's the case right now, and go move to distance learning on Monday. There's a number of moving parts that have to go with that, including notifying the distance learning teacher, making sure they have the materials in place, those kinds of things. So it takes a few days to make this happen. So if a family does choose to move from the current model that we're in, whether that be in person or if it is in a hybrid model, we'll need a few days to make that transition happen so that we get things set up properly, so the child has a seamless experience as they move from one model to the other. This next question is, how will students who are distant learners have their picture taken for the yearbook? I know this information was communicated out by the schools in terms of how that picture process was going to work. I know that there's been some specific setup time for distance learning families, and particularly in the evening. Again, I'll encourage you to reach out for the specifics with your child's particular building, but please go back and take a look at the distance learning information that was sent out. I know there's been a number of different communications that have been coming out here in the last week to 10 days. So just go ahead and feel free to peel through some of those, because I think there's been some communication in regards to what that's going to look like. But if you don't find anything, please reach out to your child's building, and they'll be able to answer that question for you. Yes, okay. Okay, just wanted to clarify a question here. So the first one is, are there minutes from this discussion? And the answer is no, there's not. But what we do is we do take these, and they're being recorded, and we do have them available for people to go back and take a look at. But no, there's no minutes that are being taken from these. The second question I have here is, does quarantine affect a student's attendance? Well, anytime a child has gone from school, it does affect their attendance. So it has an impact on their attendance. But as far as from a legal perspective, a truancy, those kinds of things, the answer to that question is no. And it really boils down to, and I talked a little bit about this last week, and I think this is a great time to bring this point back up again. Attendance for a child is a key, fundamentally important piece. Whether you're in distance learning or whatever model we happen to be in, whether it's in-person or hybrid, attendance is really important, and we want to make sure that our kids are engaged and they're there and they're a part of it. But we also understand that life happens. People get sick, they have appointments, things go on. And so it's really about communication between the school and the family. And the more we can understand what's going on, the better off. Now, if it's quarantine, we're going to probably have a pretty good idea, because families will reach out and say, hey, by the way, this is what we have going on, which for those families who have been doing this and letting us know when their child is going to be gone, we really do appreciate that. It's that communication that will help everybody to better understand where things are at, what's going on, and most importantly, how do we best meet the needs of the children if they're going to be absent from school. Okay. Again, the next question here is, if a child or family needs to quarantine, will the kids be switched to distance learning for that period? And the answer to that question is no. We're not going to be doing that. The next question here is, explain active cases. Some come on, some fall off. Oh, explain the calculation. Okay, got it. I think I understand this question now. It takes me a little while sometimes. So I think this is in reference to the Department of Public Health, Benton County, with their data, their website that they have. And on there is some really good information. Across the top of it, I look at it several times a day, so I kind of have it memorized. Across the top, you'll see some information, including things like the number of active cases, or number of cases, not active, the number of cases. And this is a number of cases that we have had in our county since the beginning of COVID. And so whether a person is active or they're not, that number just keeps rolling along. The next pieces of information in there are people who have had to wind up in intensive care. It also talks about people who have unfortunately passed, who have died because of COVID-19. And then down in the lower left-hand corner is a number that says active cases. And that number switches and moves around. And I think late last week we had a number where there was like at 40 cases. And then by the time we got to Tuesday, that number had dropped down to 21. And then now it's at, I think today was at either 17 or 18. So let me explain how that works. So when a person is diagnosed with having COVID, there's a 10-day time period for that process to work its way through. And so if you think about this, on day one, let's say that there was 7 people. And then if you go for 10 days and you keep adding those numbers up. And let's say that it's 7, so every single day, okay? And then you get to 10 days. That means that your active cases would be 70. Once you go to day 11, and let's say that there are 2 people that come up with active cases for that day, that the first group of 7 on day 1, they fall off. They're no longer active cases. So you subtract that 7 from the total of 70, so now it's down to 63, and then you add the 2 newest cases in. So what winds up happening is there's this, every 10 days, we get a new group that's coming on, we get a group that's falling off. And depending upon how many are coming on and how many are falling off will indicate how many active cases that we have in the county. That's where that number is coming from. And that's why it's important that when people have COVID-19, that they report that, or if they go get tested, or if they think they might, it's important to go get tested so that we have a really good count to know, A, how many people in the county, B, where are those people at, because it is impacting our ability to make sure that we can continue to educate our children in the safest manner possible. So I think at the end of the day that this question is revolving around the active number that's in the website, and hopefully I've done a good enough job explaining that. So just remember that COVID is for 10 days, and then after 10 days, the group that was there on the first day, they fall off, and then the next 10-day period, the newest group coming on. So that's why that number can move up and down. There are some days when we've had some days of 0, where there's been no new cases in the county. Then that means for those days, whoever is active that's coming on, it's just adding to the total. If you have a larger number where there's 10 or 12, that will subtract off after the 10 days. And as far as the calculation goes, again, that's just a very simple piece where it's a rolling 10 days, and depending upon how many new cases we get and how many fall off, will give us an indication of where we're at with active cases. The next question here is, are distance learning students going to receive reliable internet? And the answer to that question is we do have some access to Wi-Fi hotspots. Should a family need to have that's in distance learning. Again, we'll ask that you reach out in this case, reach out to your child's teacher and let them know that you're having some internet accessibility issues. And if we and we can certainly look then to get families hooked up with those hotspots. I also know that some of our internet providers in the community have in the past I've looked to try to find ways to be helpful with families. So if your access is not very reliable, look to see if there is another provider that's out there, but we can certainly help with a Wi-Fi hotspot if that's needed. We just need to have people reach out and let us know what those needs might be. So this is a multiple question. So if there is a positive case, how are we notified? And so I'll use this caveat. If it's a positive case and it impacts a child in the building where it's at, then absolutely you'll be notified, and that notification comes through the Department of Health. They have some letters that they have put together, and those will get out to you. I think we wind up sending it, but the information comes from the Department of Health, and so that'll come from the school district. And the next question is, how close to a case do we have to be notified? And what they've talked about is if you are in close contact with somebody who has been diagnosed with COVID, okay, then, and close contact is defined as being inside of social distance of 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. That's how they're defining that. If you are in close contact with somebody who is demonstrating symptoms, then you may also be notified that you may have to be quarantined for a period of time. And that's why it's so very important that we're doing several things. One, socially distance to the extent possible. It's really important that we're able to do that, because it also helps us then when we're trying to backtrack and know what people need to be notified. And generally, we're going back from the time that somebody's identified, going back 48 hours. So being able to do that contact tracing is really, really important. Number two, it's really important that we're following some of the hygiene expectations, washing our hands regularly, using hand sanitizer if water isn't available. And just remember with water, it doesn't have to be warm water, it just has to be water. Soap and water is a tremendous asset in the fight against COVID-19. So again, it's if we're doing those things, practicing good social distancing, wearing our face coverings as we're being asked to do, that really does help us prevent the spread of COVID-19. And so again, if you're a friend of somebody who's got that, been identified as having COVID-19, they talk about the first tier. Nope, you would be a second tier person. But if you were in close contact with that person, then you may need to quarantine for a period of time and look for those symptoms. So this next question is, do the changes in learning models to hybrid distance learning, do they need to go in front of the school board, or are you, I'm assuming me, the superintendent, are you able to make the change based on your meetings? So at a board meeting at the end of August, the board did give me as a superintendent and I don't know if I want to use the word authority, but that's the word that comes to me now, the right to be able to make that change without it going to the school board, but it must also be done in consultation with the board. So part of this process in terms of the data gathering is going to be with our COVID incident management team, and then from there look to see what the data says, and if there is going to be if the recommendation is for a change, that will be done in consultation with the board. But it does not have to don't have to have a board meeting. And here's the reason why many school districts have made that decision, is that with a board meeting, there has to be, with open meeting law, there has to be a period of time before a board can meet, and that period of time is 3 days. And if we have a rapid increase, waiting 3 days in order to make that change may not be in the best interest of everybody. So that's why the superintendents are being allowed to make that decision. But please know it is being done in consultation with the board. They got me new Post-its, and I'm still struggling. I got the equivalency of 2 master's degrees, and I still can't pick up a Post-it off of a piece of paper. Anyways, are there minutes from the, next question is, are there minutes from the COVID incident management team meetings on Thursdays? No, there's no minutes with those. It will be our desire as a part of our communication to be able to share out some pieces of information that the community and our staff and everybody might find useful. And when we meet tomorrow, that's one of the pieces that we'll spend a little time talking about. What's that communication going to look like? But no, there are no minutes from those meetings. The next question is, can a parent bring a case of water for my student's classroom when I drop off